Welcome, everyone, and thank you for taking time out of your busy days to join us on today's webinar, and in particular, this panel discussion. My name is Graham Blanks, and I'm the Director of Business Operations for DALIM Software here in North America. I will be moderating today's session, and we'll be asking those questions that we all want to hear answered. What does the future hold? Our panelists are seasoned veterans in their respective industries with decades of experience between them, and they'll be sharing some of their thoughts and insights around today's topic, which is the future of the publishing and printing industry. So let's get started, and let me introduce you to our two panelists and give them an opportunity to sort of share a little bit about who they are, who they work for, and a little bit of background and history in terms of their career. So why don't you kick us off, Ed, and just give us a little bit of a background, who you are and where you've come from?
Well, ex-New Yorker, if that helps explain who I am. But I'm working at Continental Web and have been for about 25 years. We can brag that we were the second to sell installation in the world and the first dialogue installation in the world. So actually second to sell in the US and first dialogue. So we've been around with DALIM for quite a few years, hence being in the first magazine.
All right.
So,
yeah, you look like you've definitely lost
I've aged.
a little bit of hair color.
I've lost the hair color, but I still have the tie, and I think I'm wearing the same shirt as that picture that he just showed. So,
well, you're lucky that you can still fit in it. So Robert, let's switch over to you.
Okay, hello everybody. If you don't know me, you should consider yourself lucky. But I've been working on the publisher side since 2008, before I work on the printer side. So I can probably say that I was the first person to 100% use DALIM ES in the publisher's environment. Quite interesting, but that's it. Right now, working at A360 Media, which is formerly known as American Media. We have 11 titles, which are weeklies. Most of them are celebrity. So the only thing on the market which we consider not ours is People's Magazine. And also we have several monthly titles.
All right.
And I'm based in New York.
All right. Thank you, Ed. Thank you, Robert. So just some quick housekeeping. If anybody in the audience has a question, feel free to post it in the panel to the right of your screen. You'll see a Q&A panel if you have any questions for either one of our panelists. And why don't we kick things off and basically let's have a quick chat about print and publishing. I mean, publishing from a publication print perspective, we've seen, a lot of changes over the past 2 decades, things that have triggered changes like the financial crisis in 2008, the Apple's introduction of the iPad in 2010, and, obviously the growing digital transformation. We've had emails and all sorts of ad campaigns around digital for close to 2 decades now. So obviously the most recent significant event that's impacted everybody, including the print and publishing industry, is the pandemic. So starting with you, Ed, obviously you leverage a lot of technology for your clients today, but what changed and how were you affected and how was your business affected through the pandemic?
Well, it was normal stuff, but you brought up some interesting points. Technology is about the only change that's going on. The press room in itself, there's news technology out there, but it's pretty much the same, routine on a daily basis. You still need people. We were forced to interact with our vendors differently because we had, a locked environment. We were trying to keep everybody distant from each other so as not to, spread the pandemic anymore. But, there was a lot of delayed business, but there were a lot of new opportunities that arose due to the technology. And we had to, sorry to sit there and keep bringing up the concept of old here, but we had to dust off, what was old and bring it into new. and I mean that by, the entire DALIM suite of tools. We went back and we said, we got all these things, let's just start pushing them. And so we had to come up with new ways to interact with our clients in a much more interesting way. And, 20 years ago, some of them jumped on board. 15 years ago, same thing. But I realized in the pandemic, it was the perfect storm for being able to push all this technology out to the clients and have them accept it and embrace it. Whether it sticks, that's another story. It's hard to say.
I mean, do you have a particular example of something that you implemented during this pandemic to help your clients that were, working remotely and had lots of restrictions in terms of traveling to their print vendor?
Absolutely. So we're jumping right into question number 2 already.
We'll get to Robert in a second.
So yes, we came up with a virtual press OK, which was probably our biggest seller. And what it did was allow us to give our press sheets and show it to them online at the same time, instead of having them travel in, spend all that money. And I think that is one of the things that's going to. Yeah. And
I think we've lost Ed. We lost you there for a second. Oh, you're back.
Came back. Sorry. So to repeat, we had a lot of customers who always came in for their press OKs. There was travel expenses and all that went along with it, depending on where they were coming from, and hotel rooms and stayovers. So now this virtual press OK has been a godsend. Our customers love it. It has given us new opportunities of business. So that's been good. So, so from a customer standpoint, I think that's going to stick around. But as I said, we dusted off the suite. There was, the DALIM flipbook we pushed out there because our customers were looking for new ways to sit there and get in front of their clients and customers. So it's a lot of stuff that just, the technology allowed us to sit there and just, come up with new ideas and use old ones.
All right. Now switching to New York, I'm Robert. You've been through a lot. I mean, I know we've been talking about some history with American media and A360. I mean, Sandy was how many years ago?
American media. I mean,
that's
6 years ago.
No.
I think Sandy was longer than that.
Sandy was 2012.
But that was a significant event that changed the way you worked. I mean, obviously you had to jump through hoops to get things, continuing your business, but you changed your environment and the way that you work as a consequence of that. So how has the pandemic affected you?
Well, we can talk for hours about this.
You've got 10 minutes.
All right. So I may not say anything, but I mean, it's important to remember that, we were in one way, bad things turned to be good things. Sandy, the publisher, American Media, was very specific because we had weekly titles, turnaround time, and everything from the point of writing the article, acquiring the imaging, and processing through everything and pushing to the printer to go and run on press. Can go, I mean, these days we do it in sometimes less than an hour, including retouching everything else you can see. So the technology which we invested in before Sandy and after Sandy for many different reasons, it practically played very big and crucial, critical role for COVID. I'm just going to give a little bit of, just 2 words about what the change on March 9, when suddenly we become at AMI, or A360 Media, had to start facing with the how we're gonna do in the COVID. So before, standard work, publishing work environment, everybody does the same thing. You go to office, you work, you collaborate with people, and that's how editorial part of editorial, photo, story, copy, legal, all those things were happening. Now, on the other side, the consumer side, point of sale still available. You go to the store, you go to the newsstand, you go and finding at the airport. They've been available, but slowly, still cannibalized by beef jerky, candies, and cosmetics, which store make better profit on. But everybody could buy. When the COVID hit, of course, one of the biggest problems in this case was how you can not necessarily how you produce, but how you can sell the product. And that affects, of course, printers, because if we produce the content, we print it, and there's no way to sell it for many different reasons. We can talk about.
Well, obviously, you have the impact from the advertising revenue, because pretty much most of the stores were locked down and shut. And then obviously that drives revenue, as well as then being able to actually sell, I'd say, magazines on the newsstand, which was severely impacted, obviously, at the beginning.
Well, I mean, let's put it this way: point of sale and distribution cripple due to store restrictions. I'll give you an example. On the one, check register line available due to COVID, right? That means how you're going to put, all the publishers' magazines on one newsstand, the bracket.
Yeah.
The restrictions even on how to bring those titles. 100% of the newsstand on the airports, which is one of the biggest newsstand revenues for every publisher, gone. People also were putting their money towards the life necessities. So spending on the magazines or books, of course, it was crippled as well. But going back how it affected us from the point of as a publisher, from the production point of view, it actually did not do much, since Sandy, we already had in office / remote work set up for production managers. The whole image processing was outsourced to Asia. Of course, we still had to deal with their restrictions with COVID, but our partner had, they have 4 different locations, so we're able to, manage that without any interruption. One of the things, of course, another thing is, I work very closely with Blanchard System, and since we introduced them, sorry for the helicopter. Since we introduced, we practically 100% integrated Virtual Publisher and Send My Ad portal to DALIM, dialogue and twist environment. There was absolutely no effect on us how we close the magazines from the advertiser, production, printer point of view. Now,
the impact from your sort of technology and the working environment wasn't too severe for you, but obviously because of the point of sale impact and the advertising impact, how is that recovering today? Is that recovered back to its normal levels, or are you seeing a shift in, I would say, ad revenue possibly shifting more digital versus print?
Well, I mean, there was, of course, a couple other challenges which we had, in the COVID, changed certain things in the way we work on the editorial side, and that also triggered later, how we may work in the future. I mean, don't forget that everybody had to take the computer, go home. On March 9th, we're 100% virtual office for the whole company. That was the day where, President Trump closed the doors to America.
Yeah.
At the same time, all of us worked from home. That triggered the problems which nobody was considering. It's like you use everybody's home internet connection. If you work in an apartment building, most of our people live in New York, in apartment buildings. They were crippled by people watching TV, etc. So demand for not downloading the content, but actually pushing upfront was a problem. But we managed that, bought additional very quickly, bought the, internet hotspots for people to be able to send the images. How this changed us? Of course, it was difficult in the beginning from the point of view, like, the editorial system, K4, VPN latencies, name it. But, it very quickly, ironically, the COVID triggered transition, improved the process of closing issues. Seems that the editorial people especially quickly adopted the new way of collaboration. We're using Slack, Zoom, especially with the copy check, legal approval, and release. And these days we don't have any late closes. Everything's like well-oiled machine.
All right. So that means that people like Ed, sitting there looking to print your stuff or whatever, is getting his stuff on time and being able to turn that around. So Ed, you talked about the fact that you'd implemented some of these new business processes and you're interacting with your clients a little differently, and to support their working remote. And do you see that continuing? I mean, doing more and more of that?
I see it continuing for a while, Graham, and I think some of the things like the virtual press OK will definitely stick around. Yeah. But on another side of our business too, when you talk about catalogs and things like that, they were seriously hurt with the fact that the supply chain, they couldn't get products into the country. Their photographers couldn't go out and shoot new products. Yep. So they were actually having to try to reinvent their catalog to make it look, new and unique. Old is new again. They were just taking the same old pictures, cropping them and doing whatever just to come up with some new ideas. So, I'll say that we've gotten into some people's heads. I do think that everybody, and I see it starting to happen right now as things start to open up, people are starting to slide back into, the way it was. But there will be some things that stick around. And I think, talking to some of our clients, they're talking about, whether or not they're even going to have, a place to go to work. It may be permanent for them, which is, brings up a whole communication issue. They're getting emails on their phones. You can't call them on their phone because they're not at their office now. So, new ways of doing things, much like what you're doing right here with this, with this webinar. We've had to change our marketing strategies to sit there and get in front of our clients because, you can't knock on the door anymore. You can't sit there and say, hey, I got a box of donuts, or let me take you to lunch. That's not going to happen. We're hearing more and more of our customers maybe not even going back to work ever. Yeah. So.
Well, I think that's just the nature of this whole digital transformation. We're all being moved in that direction. But, let's talk about the future. So we all would love to know what the future holds. So, starting with you, Ed, you're a publication printer. It's been really challenging over the past, decade or two with the overall reduction in, I would say, magazine and printing and publication. But we're seeing growth in other areas in print. But from a publication print standpoint, you mentioned catalogs. And is that something that you see is going to continue to grow?
I can't answer that question. I saw the uptick in that in the last year because everybody was nesting and wanting to, there's so many articles that we shared with our clients about the uptick in catalogs, mostly on the home side, because everybody wanted to sit there and make their place, more comfortable because they, when they walk in and out of the door and they're there for 4 hours, it's one thing at night before they go to bed. But, now you're sitting there going, I'm here for 18 hours a day now, I need a new couch. I need a new rug. They spent the money on that. Home prices, as we talked about before, have risen immensely. So I don't know if it's going to stick. I don't know if it's going to stay at all. I think people are going to go back to whatever old pattern they feel comfortable with. Personally.
So you were talking about leveraging old and new for new again in terms of technology. So are you exploring other avenues or other revenue opportunities with the technology that you have? You mentioned Absolutely. The flipbook. You're seeing more uptick in that?
Absolutely. Flipbook is probably our second bestseller after Virtual Press OK.
Yeah.
And as I said, Virtual Press OK will stick around because we've heard it from a lot of the publishers and in the New York area saying that this is something that will stay because they're being challenged by their budgets on a constant basis. So therefore, they will sit there and implement that and save, to send somebody out on a color OK is, a $5,000 to $8,000 for a 1 or 2 night stand here, with their per diem and airfare and hotels and so forth. So they've all jumped on board with that stuff. Flipbook is just another way for clients to sit there and have that. And then we've also, implemented what which is really the flat plan. We just called it the virtual whiteboard and threw it out there to some of our customers to sit there, much like what Robert does for a living and sit there and say, here, you can do your entire work right here on our site. And we don't even have to know, just let us know when it's done. We'll get the email that everything's approved and out the door. So that's also becoming a monetary financial.
So it's all good then. It's all positive.
As I said, yes, you can sit there and take the positive. for the projects that have been put on hold have been replaced with some new opportunities. If the other ones lift up, then it'll be a decent year, and we will have survived the pandemic as everything starts to open up. But as I said, I think everybody is going to go back to the way, once they go back to their comfy chair at their office, things will go back to normal again.
All right, so let's switch back to Robert in New York. So Robert, you may have a vision for the future. I mean, you're seeing a lot of changes. It's very, it's a competitive landscape. You're competing with all of these other digital channels, and you're a media company creating content. Where do you see the future for magazines?
Double vision. I mean, let's put it this way. Of course, you read the news. You have big banks and everybody else trying to push the workers back to offices. So like Ed said, of course, some of people gonna go back to the way they tried to do. I mean, they were doing the business before COVID. That's why, we see that slowly the airport newsstand sales are recovering because the airports are being opening. But, you see that that the 1 year damage, not necessarily damage, but the push to something which was happening on the slower piece, which is conversion, transition to digital, higher quality and selection content. I strongly believe that you cannot compete with the news, you cannot compete with social media, you cannot compete anything but people are gonna look for something a lot higher quality, and print's still relative, but subscription are slowly heading towards digital. How they're gonna be read? Is it digital replicas? Is it native apps? Or is it Apple? Many different ways.
So obviously the revenue stream changes, in terms of income from point of sale reduction, subscription reduction, or subscription change. Are you able to maintain an even keel when you shift from print to digital? And are you looking at ways of, uplifting the print to be a more premium type subscription or solution for subscribers? Or people
well, I mean, even before COVID, of course, we look at the improve the paper and the quality because you have to compete with the just better product. But I think that also, the future, in my opinion, is already visible. Changing format of content from magazine. That's what we all are accustomed to. Articleization of the content. That's what Apple Newsstand does. And the same through social channels, but at the cost of advertising. There's absolutely these days, that's the biggest problem from day one, that the digital advertising cannot cover what comes from traditional, and there's many reasons for that. One of them is even the structure of the magazine gives you specific business rules, like positioning rules and exposure for advertisers, control between the competition, placement, etc. But that also brings, what I think about the future. So it has to be monetization on, the new existing content, archives, advertorial work, but also protecting with using new technologies, channels. Like there's already a couple decentralized digital content marketplaces where those articles, maybe even hard copy print, pieces, books, but photos, videos, are protected, with the NFT, which are NFT protected. That also, we have to look at using technologies not used widely before.
So obviously, we're talking about these sort of other digital channels, and you're talking about articleization of traditional magazine format. But what's your long view in terms of a printed publication, a printed magazine? I mean, it's had its quality eroded over time. I mean, in terms of the actual content, it's shrunk in size, the quality of the paper, and I guess today probably having supply chain issues, getting quality paper and inks and so on. So what do you see? I mean, as a business, do you still see that as a strong part revenue stream for a publisher like? Okay.
Absolutely. I mean, let's not fool ourselves. We all do content for print, and after that, we repurpose that for digital. Unfortunately, the global marketplace, it's slowly diminishing. The supply of the magazine paper, it's getting tougher and tougher. The ink prices are going up. But that's why it's even more important for that content which already has been printed to try to continue get the revenue. And these are they are using technologies which were not widely used before by publishers, in my opinion, like automated marketing, leads nurturing and support, so you can sell, send it to sales team, not just for the advertising, but for the for the buyers, subscribers. And they knew this way also another technologies, like I mentioned about those marketplaces with the NFT, token backup or secure content. This is very important because that creates money. It becomes unique, and also it gives you the new way of loyalty program rewards, which readers or subscribers can get. And this could be the free subscription to the printed issue, or it could be collecting the tokens which can be exchangeable for goods. That's already happening with the Amazon events program, or eventually interchangeable exchangeable for the coins. I call it just token economy, and that's going to affect everybody: printer, magazines, digital magazines, publishers. That's going to be just the new way try to monetize, regardless if the content is, what channel we're going to use to deliver that content.
All right. Okay. So yeah, I think
Graham,
I think we're out of time, almost out of time. So I'm going to let you finish what you're going to say, Ed, and then we've got a couple of questions from the audience.
Sure. Well, the other half of that is that we can thank, Facebook and Google for continually raising the price of their digital ads, because it's now, from the catalog side, which we just read recently, is that they're starting to realize that it's cheaper to print again than it was to sit there and go digital, because the ads are just, costing so much money.
And I mean, talking about ads, I mean, I question, when you start looking at the advertising, okay, the cost of advertising, but what are the metrics, the analytics you get back in terms of the effectiveness of the advertising? Because obviously one of the challenges you have when you're digital and you're talking tablet and mobile is you have got all of this stuff being thrown at you. How do you get your message to stick out? One of the things that was always talked about from a print standpoint is the fact that somebody's typically sat down, they're reading through curated content, they've got quality advertising, and typically people tend to appreciate that more and it'll have more impact. So the effectiveness of the sort of printed ad, it seems to be still higher from a return standpoint than maybe digital. I don't know if that's something guys...
No, absolutely. The post office sits there and still declares that they're 95%, efficient with their delivery.
Yeah.
You sit there and do a marketing strategy via, any kind of email campaign, and, the industry average is 25, 30% is who you're going to sit there and have a read rate. Whether their analytics are good, bad, or indifferent, you sit there and take that and go, once it's delivered to your doorstep and it comes through your mail slot, you still have to touch it.
Yep.
You either got to throw it away, or you got to read it, or put it in the pile and get to it some other time. So there's still that, strong, and I'm with Robert. I still think that, we're printers first, and the digital content comes second, because I still think that there's much more efficiency in having something given to you. When you're sitting there looking at these digital newsstands, you have to go and get that information. If it's sent to you, I mean, come on, we're all in that same boat where we sit there and flip through our emails and delete before we even, finish reading the first line. So,
all right, let's get to our questions. We only have a couple, but the first question is from Mike Moscato. This is for you, Robert. Since sales of physical magazines were affected because of COVID, did this translate to more sales of digital versions? Or I guess, did that translate to people migrating to digital subscription versus maybe a printed subscription or point of sale newsstand?
Thank you very much. Very interesting question. The problem I see is that still it depends what people are looking for. Of course, the lack of ability to buy the newsstand. Let's just focus on subscriptions, print and digital. I still get a lot of emails from people who subscribed or bought the subscription and didn't specify which one they want, and they get the digital and say, no, I want to print it. I don't want to have digital.
Yeah.
These are the preference. Like people read probably it's a lot easier with the books because Kindle is completely different than, iPhone. People buy digital content to read on the grayscale screen. For the magazine, of course, we have increase in the digital subscriptions. we also, it's one of the reasons, because when you look at the average cost of supporting print subscriber and digital subscriber, it's like 10-1, because for print you have to create everything else, but also it's a postal distribution.
Well, it's a one and done. It's a one and done scenario, you know.
Yeah, but in digital, of course, you know, even the way you interact with sending emails, having somebody processing data. You know, right now we have only one player in America, which is CDS. So we have to go towards the digital side. It's you know, of course, the revenue it's smaller, but still, it's you know, it's something which allows us to to be.
All right, so let's move on to the next question, because we are over time here. So next question, this is for you, Ed. This is from Chris Herrick. Do you charge extra for the using creating the flipbooks? Is it a value add in terms of selling your service and so on to your existing clients? So is this a separately charged, or do you just?
It is separately charged, and in the past, and thanks, Chris, it used to be our salesman would give it away, you know, as an enhancement and enrichment. You know, when we started doing more and putting movies and embedded videos inside of it for our clients, it became a strong, I won't say the biggest revenue stream in the world, but it was enough for us to sit there and force our salespeople to actually charge for it.
All right. Okay. So I think we're over time. Apologies for anybody who submitted a question that we weren't able to get to. We all look forward to seeing you, hopefully in person at a future event. But in the meantime, please tune in to our weekly webinars. I want to thank both you, Ed, and you, Robert, for participating today. Great dialogue, great discussion, and hope to see you in a future event soon. And for everybody, thank you for joining us. And this concludes the panel discussion today. Thank you.
Thank you.